You can draw this great little drawing of a tabby cat using just two different sets of pencils, just the basic 12 pencil set from Prismacolor and the basic 12 pencil set from Polychromos. Using these two pencils together gives you the best of both worlds. You get the great creaminess of the Prismacolors with great ability to mix colors, and then you get the hard fine point detail of the Polychromos. I really like using these two sets together in a lot of my drawings. I hope you'll give this one a try and let me know how it goes. So I'm going to take this and just lay it down on top of my art paper, and then I'm going to take my tape and I'm just going to make like a little hinge here at the top where I tape half of the tape is on the top of the picture and half of the tape is on my art paper, so that I can lift this up but it stays in its spot on my art paper. And then once you have that done, you can take your transfer paper and you want shiny side down, and you're going to lift up your reference photo and just take your transfer paper and slide it in underneath. In between the two, you're going to make like a little sandwich. So now I'm going to just take my pen and I'm going to start drawing in the basic shapes that I see. And it's not just doing like, okay, here's an eye, here's a nose, and I'm done. I want to get like places where there's a big change in between like value or texture or color. We're not working so much on color. I don't think only a couple of you got a color picture. But just anywhere where there's a clear change, this is your roadmap to help you keep track of where you are in your drawing. So you need enough detail in there that you don't lose your place, but you also don't want to draw this in transfer paper markings. You want to do just enough to help you keep your place. So we're going to start with our first mark, and I'm going to go right here. I want us all to do this little line right here on the corner of the eye. And then I want you, before you go any further, I want you to lift up your transfer paper and your photo. Don't pull it off the tape, but just flip it up and look at the mark that you made on your paper. And you want it to just barely show up. If you have to kind of like work a little bit to see it, that's great. If you can see it without working, but like it's still pretty light, that's good too. If you've got like, this is a little bit too dark. All right, and I usually do like one test because you use the transfer paper over and over again, and so the more you use it, the better it is, because it doesn't transfer as much of the graphite onto your paper. So I always do a little test mark to see like, okay, how dark is it going to go on me? Because sometimes I'll use like what I think is normal pressure and it barely does anything. Other times I'm using really light pressure and it's like, oh my God, it's a zebra. So I always just do one mark and then check to see how it looks. Okay, so here we're going to keep on going, and I'm just going to go around the eye. And now I want to do this little outside edge, like the eyelid, like is that an eyelid? The lower eyelid, I guess. But then I'm also going to do the part of it that borders inside the eye. So I have both of those lines in there, so I know how wide to make that edge there. I want to get the pupil in there, and I want to get the highlights. So with the highlights, go outside the white part so that you're not fighting that dark line inside your highlight. You're going to go around the edge of the highlight. And so not right on the line, but just on the darker part inside of it. And then I'm going to start doing some of these stripes in here. I like the cropping on this picture. You have just the one eye and you can get in really close. Bring that closer. And like the texture inside the eye is all very similar. I could go in and put this mark right here and maybe a little bit of a shadow over here and around here, just to know to look for these. These are different than this part here. But I also, like, I know myself, I know to look for that anyway. So eventually, the more you do this, the more you know what to look for, the less marks you need to put in, which is helpful because then you end up fighting them less. Don't worry about outlining the whiskers. Hopefully nobody's gotten to that yet. We're going to do a different technique to put the whiskers in. Just ignore them as if they aren't there. Okay, I think I got everybody that time. Okay, let's zoom in a little bit on that. So your transfer looks something like this at this point, correct? Don't undo your, don't take your reference photo off the top of it. You're going to keep that on there for now. But I want you to pull out your transfer paper. This is very important. Pull that out so you just have the reference photo and your art paper now. So now we're going to take the stylus. So we're going to take this and just look at it on this one. I have a smaller ball on this end and a slightly larger ball on this end. I want to choose the smaller ball. They kind of come in different sizes, so just figure out which one looks like it would work best for a whisker. And what we're going to do is just we're going to draw along this whisker line without the transfer paper there, but you're going to use pressure to kind of push that paper in so you create a little ditch that your pencils will go right over, okay? So, and you want to press pretty hard. You can definitely press too lightly. You can't really press too hard, okay? So you're just going to go right along those whisker lines, pushing hard. You have to push hard enough to indent that paper. So can you see how I have those dents in there? You want to be able to see them and feel them. So we're doing that to the whiskers because trying to slice out that long, graceful stroke is fairly difficult, where this is a very quick and easy way to do it. And that way you preserve the light of the whisker throughout your whole drawing. You don't have to worry about it. I dislike working from a photocopy if I can avoid it, or a printout of the picture, just because, like, when you compare this to this, you see the difference, and like I can zoom in and really see detail. But anyway, so my point is that I prefer to work from my iPad. If you have a tablet, working from your phone is one thing, but if you're working from a tablet, it really, like, the ability to zoom in and see what's going on is very, very helpful. So I recommend that if you have the ability to do so. Okay, so I have my reference photo set up here, my drawing paper here, and so I'm going to open up my Prismacolor pencils. So the way I tend to start drawings, because I'm right-handed, I start from the upper left corner and work my way down to the bottom right. I do that so I don't drag my hand through what I've already put down. I've got a black and white and a color version. So when I look at this corner up in here, it's pretty dark. So I actually don't think I'm going to use white right away. I think I'm going to go in with the black and just start. I want to do, like, okay, here is the top of it, and then this is the side of it. So I'm kind of putting this border up here so I'll know how far to go down on with the black. And then this is the border here. And I could have done that while I had the transfer paper there. I could have drawn in the border around it. I thought about it and I was like, oh, I won't need to, but it would have been helpful here. And so now I know that because I've got this line here. Everything is fairly dark until I get to this line here. So that's this line here on my art paper. So I can bring the black down safely without any white under it to about here, okay, to this first line. So I'm just gonna start putting down and I can, you know, I'm moving up in my pressure pretty quickly just because I know I'm not going to really need to layer much here. It's straight black. So I just need to fill in the tooth of the paper and get it dark as quickly as possible. And this black is actually going to extend all the way over across the top of the picture frame. And I'm not going to go all the way down to this line. I'm going to go to just in front of it. Let's see. So this is the line. When I look at my reference photo, I can see it's getting a little bit lighter right in here, right above this line. And so I'm not going to go all the way up to it with the black. I'll start bringing in a lighter color under there when I'm ready to move on to that step. Okay, so next I think I'm going to grab my sienna brown. If I had a different color to choose from, I would. I know the sienna brown is going to make this a little too warm for my liking, but between the options that I have of white sienna brown or the dark brown, none of them are great. You know what, actually I think I'm going to grab the no, that won't work because it's not waxy enough. And Polychromos won't work very well. The white is going to be too light. The sienna brown is too warm, and the dark brown is too dark. So it's really like which one is going, of all of these that aren't really ideal, which one is going to work the best for what we need it to do. And it's probably going to be the sienna brown, which will be the correct value for these lighter hairs that are coming into the black, but it's going to be too warm, so we're going to have to do some adjusting after that. Does that make sense? Like, I'm just giving you my decision making process so that you can think for yourself later. You can go through like, okay, what color do I need? What colors do I have? What is the value, which is most important, like how light or dark is it? So let me get the value closest to the right value first. White is too light, dark brown is too dark, okay? The sienna brown is close to the same value. So what is the temperature of these little hairs that I see up in here? What is the temperature of it? It's kind of a, what color is it? It looks like maybe a yellowy brown, right? Like a desaturated yellow. So the yellow that I have is this very, very high chroma yellow, very saturated yellow. This is not going to work for that. It's too light in value and it's far too chromatic, okay? So this is a desaturated orange, essentially, is what the sienna brown is. So it's still too warm. I would really like an umber, some sort of like, you know, dark umber or light umber would be a good color for this. We don't have that right now. So this is, we're going to make do. Okay, and then so you ask yourself, like, what color family is it in, and then how bright is that color? So it's yellow, but it's not that bright. It's, you know, very desaturated. So just, you know, the way that I go through making these decisions. So now I'm going to take the sienna brown and I'm just going to, I'm not going to press as hard as I would if it were white, but I'm going to put a layer of this down here along that border and kind of going down into the line, you know, going past that line. So I have something to scratch down to through my black that will be a lighter value than the black. And I think what I'll do is go over this with white to tone down the how warm it is. That the white will help cool it down. It'll change the value a little bit, which isn't the end of the world. I'd rather, I think it can handle having a little bit lighter value if they, especially in exchange for cooling the temperature. And I want to make sure to overlap the black part too. You can see on my paper where I've kind of like that grayish film over the black, that's the brown overlapping it. And that way there's like not this like line, this, you know, perfect line in between the black and the brown. Okay, and I'm going to come over to just where this first big eyebrow stripe comes in. The little M that they have on their foreheads is the first leg of the M. Okay, now I'm going to take my white Prismacolor and I'm going to lightly, not super lightly, but like kind of medium, light to medium pressure, go over the sienna brown. But while I have the white in my hand, I'm going to go ahead and bring it down and start like pushing hard enough to get like little pencil crumbs. And I'm going to come down here to the next like level of shapes or whatever, the next section going across this. If this weren't so dark here, I would be going in and erasing these lines some before I went over them, because once you put the colored pencil over them, they're definitely set. You can't lift them at all. But because this is so dark, they're not going to show up. But as I get closer to like these areas down here, I will definitely be erasing more. Because now I'm going to take the sienna and I'm going to do a light coat of it over the white. And you want to make sure your pencil strokes are mimicking the direction of the fur and the length of the fur. Okay, so once I have the burnt sienna in there, I'm going to take my burnt ochre from my Polychromos pencil set. And now I'm going to start building some fur texture. And how that looks is I do like these little tap, tap, tap strokes. Let me turn this over and show you. So I'll do like 3 little strokes all together like that, mimicking the direction of the fur and the length of the fur. And like you just do like little clumps. And like they would be closer together, but that's essentially what I'm doing, is building this like these little clumps of hairs to build up the fur structure. Yeah, I'm doing it right on top of like kind of going over the border between the both versions of the sienna brown, and then down into the last bit, like all the way over the last bit that we just did.
How hard are you pushing? Okay.
Okay, so next I'm going to take my black Polychromos pencil from the dark green set, and you want to give it a good sharpen so you have a nice point on it. It's the one with the gold ring on the end. So I want to use this pencil because it has a harder lead, and so I can get more distinct strokes with it. Okay, so the hairs will, like, I'll have individual hairs going on. And so I'm just going to do that tap, tap, tap thing again, and just bring those hairs down. Into the browns. Again, really looking closely at my reference photo and how the hair is behaving in my reference photo. So I'm going to bring this up closer to the camera. So you see what I'm doing there? And it's starting to build in that hair texture. Okay, so I'm putting in all of my darks. I'll bring my lights back out once the darks are in.
You're going down into the light.
And we're going to build it up darker than it really should be because we're going to make it lighter when we come back in with the slice tool. And you can go a little heavier with the black in that section that the black crosses over to the sienna, the first section of sienna brown. You can go a little heavier with your black there to kind of help make that a smoother gradient. So right now it looks like this. Okay, and so now I'm going to take my slice tool and I want to use this little point sideways. So I'm going to scrape it against the paper like this so that I don't want to do it like this because I won't be taking off very much. I want to use it sideways like that. That way it takes off a little bit thicker of a stroke. And so I'm just going to go in and start the same way I did the tap, tap, tap with the pencil. I'm going to do that with my slice tool. Okay, and it's not going to be as obvious of an effect with this because we have the brown underneath. We don't want it to get really light, but it's just a way of adding in some lights and having the black hairs coming through, you know, like it looks like they're all kind of intermingled between the black hairs and the light hairs. And then as I get down to the burnt sienna or where we put the white underneath, I'm getting lighter hairs. So I'm seeing there's like a distinct line here that I want to get rid of. I want to go break this up. There's not a stripe here. This is a shadow, or you know, this is the fur, and like the cat's head is in shadow, so I want like a softer edge there. So I'm going to break that up by just going in with my black Polychromos over it. And you're just going to go back and forth with lightening, darkening a little bit here. I think I'm going to use my Prismacolor black in here too to break up some of these lines. And then there's lighter over here. So now I'm going to move down along this section here. So I'm going to take my Prismacolor white. Let's see, this is a stripe though, but I want to cut into it. So when I look at it, like there are still some light hairs that are coming in. So I'm going to go ahead and put my white underneath. So I have that ability to pull the light hairs out. And so I'm just going to bring the white down along the edge of the face here. And then before I get over here, I'm going to want to erase that because otherwise it'll be too light there. Always check your eraser before you go to erase and make sure there's not a weird color on it, because that can be super frustrating. So I lifted pretty nicely. Now you can barely see that mark, which is just how I want it. So it won't show up very much in my underneath my lights. So when I'm building those first under layers where I'm kind of just like mixing color, I don't worry so much then about fur texture, you know, like what direction the hair is going in and all of that. I don't want to be messy with it, but I just want to get like some flat color down with like the white, and then I just put the burnt ochre. Yeah, I always forget the name of that one. Put the burnt ochre down, and I'm not worried about texture at this point. I just want basic color. But then I'm going to go in with the black Polychromos and start doing some hairs in here. I'm just doing the transition from the lighter fur into that dark stripe. And then as it comes over here towards the eye, it gets lighter very quickly. So I'm gonna leave it right there. Okay, and then bring this down here. This is the burnt ochre Polychromos.
Which black did you use?
I use the Polychromos black for two reasons. The main reason, I think the Prismacolor black goes a little bit darker, but I like the Polychromos black better because the Prismacolor black has a blue cast to it when you like mix it with any kind of white. And so because we have white under here and it's very close to the white, there's only one other color in between it and the white. I don't want it to go blue. And so I used the Polychromos black instead, which is more neutral. And also the Polychromos black, it has a sharper point, a harder point, so I can get more distinct strokes. So I think as I come down over this little cheek area, right here, when you look at the color version of it, it gets a little bit lighter in here. I'm gonna use my Polychromos Walnut Brown along with the burnt ochre Polychromos to do my hair texture in there. And then I'm going to bring some black in over that. Okay, and then I'll take my slice tool again and cut out some of these hairs. Like you can see now that I've got the white underneath there, it's really scratching. I mean, it's substantial, the lights that it's bringing back up. So much to the point that I'm gonna have to use a blending stump to kind of knock it back a little bit. It's standing out too much, which is fine. I mean, I know it'll do that, and I know that then I can knock it back with the blending stump. It's still better than trying to draw like around all of these little white flecks. Okay, then I'm going to take a blending stump and I'm going to wipe it off. I always wipe it off on my pants rather than a piece of paper. But wipe it off on something other than your, like maybe on the back side of your paper or your reference photo or something, to make sure that it's not going to smudge on your drawing. And then I'm just going to softly, now I'm using a lot less pressure with this than I am with the pencil. I don't want to get rid of all of these little light marks that I brought in. I just want to soften them. And so I'm just kind of like almost polishing them, if that makes sense. But still keeping the strokes that I'm using my blending stump in is very similar to what I was doing with my pencil. Just mimicking that hair texture. And so this is what it looks like now. So it doesn't look like a lot, right? You put an eye in there and all of a sudden it's going to look like, oh my God, that's amazing. Trust the process. So now I want to start getting into these bits over here. And so I really need to kind of look and see what I was outlining on my reference photo. So I want to kind of, and this is another reason why I like to use a pen where I can see my marks. So I can go back now and see, okay, this line right here is this line right here. So I was calling out that this has more white hair in it, and I wanted to be aware of that so I can make sure to layer white underneath everything. Going right to the edge of like where it gets darker right here. I think I actually went over it, but that's okay. I don't want to do the eye just yet. Okay. So I'm really paying attention right now to the hair. I really should have paid more attention right here, but the hair was going this way, and now as it comes around to the eye, it's kind of turns a corner and starts going that way. So I need to make sure that my pencil strokes are doing the same thing. Okay, that's coming down to there. All right, and then my walnut brown. So I'm going to draw in kind of a soft outer edge of this eyelid down here, just to remind me that I don't want to carry hair texture past this line. And over here, I'm going to bring in the Prismacolor dark brown also. Let's see what I think of that. Yeah, that works. This section is just really brown. And then I'm going to go in with some of the apple green. It's a warmer green here, closer to the pupil. And then switch back to the grass green. So like down in this area, I want to mix the apple green and the grass green together. But like over here, I want to keep it more cool and just use the grass green and the white. And for now, I'm just using like little circles or, you know, back and forth lines. I want to keep my texture, I don't want it to be chaotic, but I'm also not looking for like, you know, hairlines or trying to get the details in the eyes. I'm just trying to get a smooth surface and mix the colors. So I'm not being necessarily mindful of direction as much as I am trying to keep things non-chaotic. I'm going over this with a layer of the white now, using medium pressure to just blend things together a little bit. And also to cool things off, lighten some values. Does a few things for me here. And it's already starting to look pretty good. I'm going to try a little bit of the crimson red up here where it's kind of desaturated and darker. And a little bit down here, but I'm probably going to very quickly, you know, I think I'm going to do the violet blue there instead, because the red and the violet blue will help desaturate the green, but it has a very cool look to this, you know, in this area here on the reference photo. It's a very dark, kind of cool, desaturated green. So if I want it less chromatic, I need to add in its opposite on the color wheel, which would be red. But it's also very cool, so I need to cool it off. And so red is a warmer color, so I need to get in some blue in there, right? And then it's also darker in value, so I need to go a little bit darker. So violet blue is a good solution for all of those things. Okay, so going back in with the grass green and adding in some of these green lines that I see here on this side of the eye. I think I'm going to need to add the, let's see, I should have used the violet. I'll use the, should have used the violet here, and then I'll use the violet blue to help darken up those greens, so there's a difference between them. So I'm starting to pick out some of these striations that I see within the eyes. Starting to add in just a little bit of that texture. It's pretty strong over here on the right side of the eye, so I want to get that in there. I'm going to go in with a little bit of white and burnish out some of the stuff I already have mixed before I go too much further.
What's the Prismacolor?
So we don't have the contrast in there yet, but it's already starting to pop pretty well. Okay, so now I'm going to take this violet blue and go over some of these greens in here and start building up the interesting little wiggles that I see in the eye. And just reinforce some of the colors that I'm seeing. Like this needs to be a little greener over here than I had it. So I'm just using the violet blue to like add in little squiggly lines. Let me see if I can show that a little bit better. Do you see how I just have like kind of these weird little scribbles in there? But when you move it away, it starts, especially when I blend it out with a little bit of white, it starts looking more like what we're seeing in the eye, on the surface of the eye. This is one of those things where you probably don't want to capture every little mark. You want to do more of a suggestion of them and let the viewer's imagination take it from there. I'm going to go in with a little bit of the Prismacolor black here to kind of tone down the color in some sections. There's kind of a hard line here on the edge of this, kind of on both of these highlights. So I put it in with the blue violet first, and now I'm going to go over it with the grass green. And burnish things out with the white again. Kind of soften up some of my squiggle lines. Okay, now I'm going to grab my black Polychromos, my hard pencil, and go in and really start defining all of my hard dark edges in here. So I'm going to restate the pupil. And if I were doing this eye a little bit bigger, if you look at, I don't know if I can bring this up in here. well, that didn't help. If you look at the reference photo, you can see like all of these, like right where my finger is, all of these little lines going into the pupil. If I were doing this eye really any bigger, I would put those in there, but I think that with the size of this, it would just be a little bit distracting, and so I'm not gonna bother putting them in. I could possibly change my mind on that as I get a little further, but I think I'm pretty confident in making that call. As I do this black on the inside of the eyelid, I want to soften this edge just a little bit. I'm just kind of doing little tiny circles on the edge that's meeting the eyeball, just to kind of give it this sense of rounding over, not a sharp corner, but it's a rounded skin fold. If you did a really sharp line, it wouldn't read quite as nicely. Okay, so now I'm going to take my white Prismacolor and bring it around the top of the eyelid part, and then coming down here to this inner eyelid. Inner, not eyelid, but the corner of the eye, I guess. So coming up into this fur up here, on top of the eye, I'm going to start with the Prismacolor Sienna Brown. I've already got a layer of white down there. And so I'm going to go back to my little tap, tap, tap thing that I do, and getting the fur texture in here. And let's see. I'm going to go ahead and bring that up here as well and start building this in. I don't think I have white under there. So here where it's transitioning from the dark fur, and then the cat has like some white markings coming in here, I'm going to go ahead and bring this sienna brown down into the white area, you know, as little hair strokes. And then I will go back and forth between the white, and I'll probably bring in some of the dark brown too. Okay, and I'm going to bring in my Polychromos black in here to build up my darks. Where did I trace? I always like to have the drawing or the photo that I used that I did my line drawing from, so I can kind of see what shapes are where. So trying to figure out exactly what this is right here. Okay, this was a dark spot coming in here, and then a light, so this needs to get a whole lot darker right in here. Okay, and I'm going to take the burnt ochre from the Polychromos and bring that in a little bit. I'm going to take some of the walnut brown from the Polychromos as well, just because I want some harder lines in this fur than I'm getting with the Prismacolor one. I can press a little harder and get a sharper line with the walnut brown. All right, and then my secret weapon here is my Polychromos Light Ultramarine pencil. This does an amazing job with getting like shadow colors in for whites. So like if I need it to read white, but I want it to read like a darker, cooler white, this is the pencil I want to use. I'm going to come in with the Prismacolor white over the top of some of this. Just kind of burnish it a little bit. I'm going to bring in just a few touches of the Polychromos black here in this white section, just to really kind of darken up the value in on the side of the nose. I don't want to bring in my slice tool to work on this just yet. Here on the inner corner of the eye, first I want to establish this darker value shape right here, and then that will tell me how far I need to push my values on this side. It'll just help me be able to judge the values a little bit more clearly. So I think I'm going to come in and do an underlayer here with the Polychromos burnt ochre. So I see like just little flecks of this color in this area. And I see a little bit of like a light ultramarine blue color here. Okay, and I'm going to use the Prismacolor dark brown. I want to leave kind of like I'm leaving like a little space here where I put in this little curve of light ultramarine blue, so that I have that little light section there, right where the inner eyelid is hitting the eyeball. I think I may actually have it a little too far in, but I'll correct that as I go. think it should probably be a little bit closer to here. So the nice thing about these polychromos is they're so hard you can just like scrape away whatever is, oh, I don't want that color there. Let me just go in there with this color, and now this color is there. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the Polychromos Black. And start carefully working this in. Yeah. And break up some of these hairs here with the darks. I'll go in and break up with this slice tool as well, but all right, so now I'm going to break out my slice tool and put in some random little hairs along this eyelid. And break out some more hairs up here. Bring that down so you guys can see what I'm doing. And again, just paying a lot of attention to my reference photo and what the hairs are doing, what the fur texture is doing in my reference, and trying to mimic that with the motions that I make with my tools. And then I want to soften that up a little bit. I think I want to build in some more darks in here, get this a little darker. Okay. I want to erase as much of my drawing lines as possible down here before I go in, because this is all really light. So take those down, and then I'm going to come in here along the bottom of the eye with my white Prismacolor.